Hey, thanks for coming to the forum. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure. My name is Jackie Kerr. I'm a fellow at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard's Kennedy School and a visiting scholar at the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies.
Great. So, how'd you feel about the debate, and where do you feel we are in terms of global censorship these days?
I thought the debate was very interesting. It had its energetic moments. I think that, the discussion here today was mostly about issues of cybersecurity and norms around cybersecurity. Censorship came up a little bit. I think that these are two very related issues in certain ways that often don't get thought about. You have a lot of countries like Russia, China that are using different types of content controls on their domestic internet and trying to create more of a hermetically sealed space, or at least a more controlled space within their territory for their citizens going online. But because of the very nature of the internet as a global network of networks, this is difficult and it might not be even achievable without cutting off from the global internet to really completely control everything going on. And this issue sort of runs sideways into issues of efforts to control information that's being spread from outside the country and also to project information like propaganda outside of the country, and becomes relevant to security concerns such as the conflict in Ukraine, and sometimes gets trumped up as information warfare, which maybe is a little bit of a grandiose name. But
Right, so building on that relationship between cybersecurity and censorship, and the debate we were having about encryption and whether or not there should be backdoors in encryption, I think maybe that relates to cybersecurity and censorship in that, when encryption is compromised, how does that affect how you censor yourself?
Absolutely. When there is a belief that one is being surveilled, that can create a chilling effect, sort of digital panopticon, where people are afraid to say things as forthrightly in a digital context because they don't know what may or may not be listened to and how that might have further repercussions for them or those that they collaborate with or care about. Now, when we think about terrorists, this seems like a good thing, but when we think about everyone else, like, for example, activists in authoritarian countries, not so much. And the debate we were having here today, it's very important to realize it's not a debate that only happens in the context of the United States. It happens in a global context. If the U.S. requires backdoors to all encryption that is produced in the United States, that has potential to have a ripple effect of other countries also requiring backdoors and creating their own encryption software with their own backdoors. And that doesn't necessarily just happen in democratic states that are using those backdoors to track down terrorists.
So given that we have different laws in different countries, where do we draw the line with censorship? And because if different types of content is legal in different countries, how do we even solve that?
It's tricky. You have seen patterns emerging of different countries censoring different types of material. There's even a debate over how you define censorship. The U.S. Says that we don't believe in censorship, but on the other hand, we take down content that is infringing on intellectual property rights, or that is child pornography, or some other types of content. And some countries take down what they believe is extremist content. And you see some of the least free countries taking down all sorts of political content, other countries taking down things that are based in their value systems, religious values such as blasphemy. The real question that emerges from this is there some way to develop norms of what is acceptable globally so that it doesn't become more and more separate, so that the network and the content in different countries doesn't become a patchwork quilt that's very different from country to country. And I think that's an issue that's still being worked out. Relatedly, but slightly different from the norms that were being discussed here today, the norms of what is acceptable to censor is another subject of current contestation. I think that the two overlap and have intersected and influenced each other. Like, for example, when the Snowden revelations happened, this had the impact of, in some ways, discrediting U.S. leadership on norms of internet freedom, which we had been, with Hillary Clinton's speech at the museum and a lot of gestures, we had been leading an attempt to promote norms of not censoring the internet, allowing free speech online, and this sort of thing. And there's been less ability to address that topic in the current political global context over the last few years.
Okay. All right, thanks very much.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to go find another victim. Thanks. Hey guys.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hey, would you be interested in doing a follow? No.
I gotta go.
Okay, so do you want pictures again?
Well, I mean, it's like trying to replace it. We're just going to be like an alternative.
Context of the forum and because there's obviously diverse voices here. So how do we become productive?
That's a great question. So, you got. I think when you focus on the controversy, leaders typically do actually. I would say anyone that anyone could ever disagree with, and that way they're chosen as a leader. But from an academic perspective, really, you should focus on the controversy. Just talk about it.
Here we are with Mark Harding, CTO of Minds, Bill Ottman, CEO of Minds. So Mark, what do you think about the encryption debate?
There wasn't much of a debate, was there? I don't know.
It was more of a people
discussion. Yeah,
saying their perspectives. It was a debate. It was a debate.
Yeah. I mean, there's clearly extreme views on maybe both sides.
True.
But in terms of the whole cybersecurity discussion, I thought it was very wide and kind of, there's so many different aspects of cybersecurity that kind of really need to pinpoint one of them and really discuss that rather than mingle them all together.
I agree. And cybersecurity obviously means completely different things to you depending on what side of the debate you're on. So whether you want to compromise encryption or maintain encryption, cybersecurity still applies to both of those perspectives.
Yeah,
so you're right, it's too general.
Well, my point on countering encryption, putting backdoors into encryption is the encryption technology is already there, and encryption technology that hasn't yet been cracked. So you can say, we're going to make encryption illegal, but if encryption's illegal, then the criminals anyway who are going to be using it for illegal means, they're going to use the illegal encryption. Of course, why would they use the legal version of encryption to do their criminal activities?
Is a legal compromised form of encryption even encryption?
Exactly. You have to doubt whether it is encryption anyway if it can be decrypted by someone it's not supposed to be. If it has a backdoor, you're making it vulnerable to everyone.
So how much more likely is an encryption protocol if it has a backdoor in it? How easy would it be for someone to find that?
Well, I mean, if the government can do it, then it's very easy for a hacker to do it. You know, you can't just say, oh, we're going to have encryption that only the government can decrypt. Well, you know, it's going to get out there how to decrypt that. So a hacker's going to very easily be able to do it if the encryption's so weak that he can do that.
There's no way that you could have some sort of a very super advanced form that only the government could ever find.
Well, you can make it really inconvenient for people where they have to give their specific keys personally over to the government. But why would that make any sense to do that? Because then it's only the people who are doing things legally who are going to do it, and why would, that's just going to...
Illegal people do illegal things.
Yeah, so they're not going to go to the government and, oh, here are my keys, yes, this is the encryption I'm using. They're going to use the other encryption, which they can find easily, and that works for them, and that can't be decrypted.
And so I was actually talking with Anders briefly a couple minutes ago, and because a lot of the people who are advocating for backdoors aren't necessarily the top security experts. They're top policymakers at the security firms, but the security experts, what are they saying?
Well, I think, but with the it's just a lack of understanding of how encryption works. It's kind of a juvenile way of looking at it. Like, oh, I want to be able to look at it, but I don't want anyone else to. That's kind of the logic behind it. But ultimately, it's not even like a technical question. If the government can decrypt it, then anyone can decrypt it. Why is the government this super force that's so special?
Right. And
in most occasions, the government are actually the most incompetent at everything. So,
right.
this is why they set things out to the private sector in the first place, because they can do a better job than the government can. And what are we saying? We want all our personal information to be sent to the private sector so they can decrypt it?
Right.
I don't think so.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.